Hello everyone, Graham Morris here. This is my first crack at like a small video that I'm gonna put together for YouTube, and if people like it, I might do a few more. But I'll see what the feedback's like. Anyway, the first one I thought I'd do is wicket drill considerations for field sport athletes, and a few thoughts on frontside, backside mechanics. Okay, guys. First up, I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I'm not a track coach, so maybe take some things with a grain of salt. So I'm not an expert in this area, but I've realised the value of speed development for field sport athletes, and I've been using wickets for quite a number of years now, and these are kind of my thoughts and experiences that I've had with field sport athletes. Okay, so before we talk about that, I want to talk about frontside mechanics. Um, and the ability to get frontside during upright running is quite important, because it allows you to maximize not only power but efficiency while high speed running. Okay, and I'd probably argue that it's one of the more common problems for field sport athletes is the ability to get frontside. Okay, um, now what you'll tend to see with a number of athletes is that they will lose lumbo-pelvic positioning. Their hips will become excessively forward. Okay, obviously there's always a bandwidth of going, but when it excessively goes forward, it can be problematic because they're losing their lumbo-pelvic positioning, and you'll see some videos further down the line where this is happening. And then this can lead to a loss of power, but potentially also an increased injury risk, because if you're going excessively backside, it's quite hard for the athlete to then get their swing leg back around in time in a nice position, and they can potentially they will foot strike, or they'll even heel strike a little bit too far in front of the body, okay, because they didn't have enough time to reposition that swing leg. And what will happen then is that this will increase braking force, potentially can put a lot of strain on the hamstrings, and also can put a bit more strain when it coming in your groin region as well. Okay, so I'm sure a lot of coaches have seen this, okay, and have experiences with this. Now, I also want to talk about backside, because some people, I feel like they think that backside mechanics is I feel like it's been demonized, and everyone thinks you shouldn't be going backside at all, and all these drills that people have been creating now is everything's frontside, frontside, frontside. However, I think backside mechanics is really important for maximizing hip extension power, and I'm going to show you some examples of over the wickets of this as well. Because I think if you're promoting everything frontside and it's excessive, with this heel to butt strategy, you're going to lose horizontal power. You still need hip extension over the stance leg, okay? And this is going to maximize your horizontal power. At toe off, you want some hip extension, okay? But you want it without arching of the back, okay? So I think backside and lumbo-pelvic control can be key. And as I said before, I think the problems arise probably when the athlete loses that lumbo-pelvic positioning and they go excessively backside. And when they do that, what you'll tend to see is that you'll get knee extension a little bit too early, because you want hip extension, then going to knee extension. And it's not, when people talk about triple extension, it's not complete extension, okay? Now, wicket drills, or running over mini hurdles, it's really been popularized recently. Vince Anderson was the creator of that, these drills, and then I'd say Altus probably popularized it the most. And now a lot of other coaches have been using it, and it's a great drill because it can promote good frontside mechanics. It can clean up your direction of strike when you're running in an upright position. It's good for the athletes. It's an environmental constraint to put athletes into positions so they can self-organize, and they can feel a technique that potentially can be more efficient and powerful. However, it's important that we use the correct constraint, okay? This will depend on the level of the athlete, the reactivity of the athlete, the surface, the placement, and the height of the mini hurdles. These are all important things to consider, because at the end of the day, using different heights is going to give you a different outcome. Okay, and we're going to you've got to use the right tool to get the outcome that you are after. Okay, because otherwise, what's the point of doing it? Okay, and just because something looks good doesn't necessarily mean it's effective. Okay. Now, when I first started using Wicket drills, I just used the 15 centimeter hurdles. Okay. And I found it dramatically cleaned up a lot of my athletes' technique, and it looked really good. And then recently I had a discussion with Joel Smith from Just Like Sports, and he was telling me that, just because it looks good, it's not necessarily natural. So what I started doing was I started running athletes over the mini hurdles upside down, so it's 0 centimeters, but in height, but the constraint was still there, and I started timing my athletes. Okay, and I'm going to let you know some of the results I got from that. But what's quite interesting is that Vince Anderson, who created the Wicket drills, he said in a video I recently saw on YouTube, he said sprinting is not about stepping over things, it's about stepping down from above. And what's interesting, what I found with him, is that on the track, he is using just slats. He's not actually using 15 centimeter hurdles. He's using just slats. Okay. And I thought, oh, hang on, if the creator's doing that, why is everyone using these higher hurdles? Okay. So that's quite interesting. So you can see here, this is just one of my athletes running over the wickets. Now, when running into the wickets, I typically have a 10-meter run up before hitting any wickets, because this is a max velocity drill, guys. So we want your athlete upright. The spacings are going to always depend. I always get asked, what's the spacings? And I'm like, it depends. Okay. And something to consider here is these field sport athletes typically are running on grass. Okay, so they're not going to get as much reactivity compared to a track. Okay, and don't forget, field sport athletes don't have as much reactivity as track athletes anyway. Okay, well, anyway, to cut this all short, running through the lower mini hurdles led to a significantly quicker times through the timing gates. Okay, much quicker. In fact, running over the mini hurdles for a number of my athletes, over the 0 centimeter ones, the ones that are upside down, that resulted in faster flight 10-meter times than just any other sprinting through the timing gates. I was like, okay, this is a great constraint. This 0 centimeter hurdles is a great constraint for many field sport athletes to maximize their speed through the timing gates. Now, I think one of the reasons for this, if you look at, it's a little bit hard to see on the pictures, but the first one on the left is at mid stance, the one on the right is at toe off. I would probably argue, everyone talks about running tall, and I think running tall is important, but you can run too tall. And I think the picture on the low mini hurdles, he's in a better position. He's got a better hip extension, okay, which allows him to maximize more horizontal power. And one of the ways I kind of thought about this, some people might argue, might say it's wrong, but if you're doing a mid-fire pull, people in the weight room and you're testing an isometric test, you're a lot stronger in the mid-fire position than if you're a little bit further up. Okay, so I think the mini hurdles, when they're down, allows him to access he said it, these athletes say themselves that they can feel more glute, they feel more powerful in this slightly more compressed position, slightly more compressed. Still running tall, but slightly more compressed than going over the higher mini hurdles. Now, I think one of the things to consider is that when you're running on grass, you're not going to get as much reactivity. And also, field athletes aren't going to have as much reactivity, as much bounce as a track athlete. So you'll see a lot of these track athletes potentially running 15 centimeter mini hurdles, but they're doing it on a track and they have more reactivity as an athlete. So for me, if you want to maximize speed, the Wicket drill is the upside down one. But I also think the 15 centimeter Wicket hurdles have some value, because if your athletes have really bad technique, using this 15 centimeter hurdle can clean up technique quite nicely. But then I want to get back to the 0 centimeter ones to maximize their speed. And then when they're running through those hurdles and getting good times, you can then relay it to the athlete. Hey, you see what that felt like when you sprint without the mini hurdles? That's something to try and remember. Okay, so they have it in their head. They can have that feeling, that experience of running fast and what worked. Okay, I've seen a lot of athlete coaches recently do 30 centimeter minute hurdles, like high ones like this, and I don't like this particularly because it's really it's an unnatural running pattern. Like you'll see it in the video and you're like, oh, this guy looks quite nice, but it's an unnatural running position. If you look at toe off here, look how high his thigh is, and a lot of people say, yeah, you want your thigh really high, but this doesn't really happen in the real world, and I'll show you a video in a second. And you can see here, he doesn't get much hip extension, okay, in this particular video. So I don't really like the 30 centimeter mini hurdles because I think it's slightly unnatural. Also, it makes the running pattern more running over things. And I talked about Vince Anderson before, it's about striking from above. And if you look here, he's not getting much hip extension. So he's losing a lot of power. And this is Usain, one of the greatest sprinter of all time, at toe off, and you can look at his thigh angle. That's below parallel. Okay, so why put a constraint in place that is giving you an unnatural running position or pattern? And then you can look here. Let's look through slow-mo of Usain. The thigh is actually below parallel. Nice lumbo-pelvic control. He's still, he's getting very nice front side, but he's still got those backside mechanics to maximize hip extension power. And, look at his heel placement. It's still, people always trying to do heel to butt, but, this is not always occurring at high speed running. So just be careful how much you're promoting it in all your drills, okay? Now, you don't want to get excessively backside, but you still need backside mechanics to create this hip extension power. Okay, so when you're promoting all these frontside drills, just be aware that you do need some backside to maximize your horizontal power. Okay, this video is from I believe it's Peter Whalen's group, and it's been doing the rounds for a while, and it's looking at a competitive sprinter to a college athlete sprinting, and already you can see, without me even showing you the video, you can see how excessively backside the person on the right is, and you can see how much they're arching through their back, and you can see they're struggling to get front side, and they're striking out in front. Let's have a look at this video here, and you can see athlete on the right is getting knee extension a little bit too early. One more time. You can see how important that lumbo-pelvic control is. The guy on the right successfully anteriorly tilted, arching through the back. Now, I think wicket drills would be beneficial for athletes like this, of course, but there's also some other things I would consider as well. I look at some table tests. Does the athlete on the right have adequate hip extension? Does the athlete on the right have adequate hip internal rotation? Do they have the ability to stack their pelvis over their rib cage over their pelvis? Because there'd be a number of drills we can do in the gym. Restore maybe hip extension, internal rotation to hips, and some drills to try and get this athlete to stack better. And you could do that in conjunction with some technical things on the field. There's some important things that we can do there. Just some closing thoughts, guys, on wicket drills for field sport athletes. I really like this drill because it promotes some nice frontside mechanics and some nice direction of strike, and it can give you some nice upright, high-speed running mechanics, especially for athletes that struggle with this technique. You know, as I said before, you need to take into account the level of the athlete. Probably the age of the athlete is quite important as well. The reactivity of the athlete, the surface of the drills, and also the height of the wickets. So on grass, with like some of my field sport athletes, I still do use 15 centimeter middle hurdles, but not quite as much as before. I like it with athletes that really struggle to get frontside. But obviously, the 0 centimeter upside down mini hurdles are probably a more natural running pattern. I've also found that it still promotes good frontside mechanics, but also they get nice backside mechanics without excessive backside. So for me, on the grass with the field sport athletes I've worked with, the 0 centimeter upside down mini hurdles have led to faster times. Okay, so I still use the 15 centimeters, as I said, but you need to work out what you do in the drill, why you're using it. Take into all these things. Film your athletes, time your athletes. Okay, find out what works. Anyway, remember, I'm a strength coach who understands the value of speed for field sport athletes. But so maybe take a little bit of the stuff I say with a grain of salt, but hopefully made some sense. I hopefully enjoyed it. Thank you.